Hello, David Snowpeck here from Snowpeck Games, and this is part 3 in a series about using GitLab CI with a game project built using the Godot game engine. So what did we learn in the previous parts? In part 1, we set up GitLab CI to automatically make Windows, Linux, macOS, and HTML5 builds when a commit is pushed to any branch, and commits to the develop branch will push the HTML5 build to GitLab pages. Then, in the second part, we set it up so that commits to the master branch will publish the Windows, Linux, macOS, and HTML5 builds to itch.io, such that if you are using itch.io to distribute your game to your players, all you need to do to release a new version is merge a branch and push it in Git. What are we going to learn in this part? Well, we are going to do basically the same thing as the last part, but instead of publishing to itch.io, we're going to publish to Steam, with a couple of small exceptions. We are not going to be doing HTML5 because Steam doesn't really do HTML5, and we are not going to be doing a macOS build. And that is because you cannot publish a macOS build to Steam unless that build is notarized by Apple. And we are going to dedicate an entire part in this series, possibly the next part, to setting up GitLab CI to do Apple notarization. So for this part, we're just going to completely skip macOS. When we are done, commits to either the master or develop branch will build our game with special export templates from Godot Steam so that we can use the Steam APIs and push them to a beta branch on Steam, allowing you to then log into Steamworks and publish that beta build to the default branch and have it go live out to your users. There are a couple prerequisites to publishing on Steam. First of all, you need to create a developer account on Steamworks. To do that, you'll need to do some verification of your business, tax info, bank info, and agree to an NDA and a bunch of other terms. I don't remember exactly how long it took me, but I filled out all the forms on Steamworks, and I think it was only like a day or two until my account was approved. You have to create an application in Steamworks and pay the $100 fee, and optionally, create a new Steam user account just for uploading builds. This is optional because you can actually just take your normal Steam account and put its credentials into GitLab CI and have that push builds. But for security reasons, it is better to create a dedicated Steam user account that has only the permission to push new builds and isn't associated with any of the games you bought or your payment information or any of that stuff. Hey, I have a game on Steam. It's called Retro Tank Party. I released it about a month ago. It is an online 2 to 4 player multiplayer game built in Godot using the Nakama game server. It is also open source. You can see the full source code on gitlab.com, including the GitLab CI configuration I'm using, in case you want to peek in there and see what a real live game is using. And it's by creating this game and publishing it to Steam and doing that whole project that I've learned everything that I know about GitLab CI and Steam. SteamPipe is Valve's technology for accepting builds from developers and then distributing updates out to users. And it has some very specific terminology associated with it, and we're going to go over a couple of those terms right now. A depot is a collection of files which are merged together to make a full game application. You can kind of think of them as zip files, like a bunch of zip files that are all extracted to the same directory, and when they are all put together, it makes your full game application. So for example, you could have a common depot, which has the art assets and sound assets and all of the stuff that's common to every version of your game. A Windows depot that just has the Windows executable and DLLs. A Linux depot that just has the Linux executable and SOs, and maybe a gold depot with like some extra levels and skins or weapons or something to go in a special gold edition of your game. A package is what the player actually buys and owns, and it is made up of a collection of depots. So for example, Retro Tank Party could have 2 packages, a normal Retro Tank Party package and a Retro Tank Party Gold Edition, where the Retro Tank Party package is made up of the common Windows and Linux depot, and the Gold Edition is made up of all of those depots, but additionally the Gold depot. And SteamPipe will only download the depots that apply to a player's system. So if you're on Windows, Steam will only download the Common Depot and the Windows Depot. It won't download the Linux Depot. And then if you're on a Linux machine, even on the same Steam account, when you download the game, it'll only download the Common Depot and the Linux Depot. A build is a set of depots that are uploaded and versioned together. They are referred to by a single build ID. So we are going to actually be uploading a build made up of a depot for each platform. We're just going to do a Windows depot and a Linux depot. We're not going to be messing around with a common depot like I was talking about earlier. And a branch is an alternate build of an application that players can select. So we are going to be automatically pushing our builds to a Steam branch called beta. And this is because you can only manually set the build for the default branch in Steamworks. The default branch is the one that goes out to all of your users by default. And we cannot have CI push to it automatically. We can only push to any other branch we make up and then log into Steamworks and through that UI set which build is going to be default and then go out to our users. Additionally, players can right-click on an app in the Steam library, go to Properties, and then under the Betas tab, they can select an alternate branch of your application to use. You can create as many branches as you want with any names that you want. You can have public ones where users can just go in there and find them and anyone can use them, or you can have private branches where the users need a password in order to access them. So to try and make this more clear, here is a screenshot of the SteamPipe builds in Steamworks for Retro Tank Party. Each row is a build that was pushed to SteamPipe. You can see the build ID in the second column, and then all of the depots that are included in it over here. In Retro Tank Party, I have 3 depots for the Windows, Linux, and macOS version. In the left column, you can see the branch that is currently pointing at a particular build. So Retro Tank Party has 3 branches, the default branch that all projects have, a beta and alpha branch. And you can see that currently the alpha branch is pointing at this build, and the beta and default branches are both pointing at the same build over here. In the build description, you can see the git branch and the git commit hash for the version that this build comes from. Now, this is something that our GitLab CI configuration puts in there to help us. You will see how we set that up in our GitLab CI configuration. And like I was talking about earlier, if you wanted to publish a particular build to the default branch, you would come to this page, and in this drop down over here, you'd click it, select default, click on preview change. That would take you to another page that will ask you, are you sure? Do you really want to push to the default branch? Click yes, and then that would take a particular build and send it out to all of your users. To actually do the uploading to SteamPipe, we're going to use Steam Command, which is a command line version of the Steam client. It can do almost all the things that the Steam client can do, such as downloading a game, updating it, running it, and additionally, it has some extra commands for uploading your builds to SteamPipe. .vdf files are a generic configuration file format from the source engine. The source engine is what Half-Life was built on. You can kind of just think of them as INI files, or actually because they have structured data, maybe more like YAML files or JSON files. And we are going to be using them to describe the build and all of the depots that we would like to upload to Steam Command. So we're going to need to make some VDF files. You can do one big VDF file that has the build and all of the information for the depots, or what I like to do and what the Valve documentation has you do is making a VDF file for the build that includes a separate VDF file for each depot. And GitLab CI will run Steam Command using our VDF files to push your build to Steam. One more thing I want to talk about before we actually get down to work here. Godot Steam is a Godot module that allows you to use the Steam API. You actually have to combine it with a redistributable library that you get from Valve after you create your Steamworks account and accept the NDA. And this will allow you to do anything that the Steam API can do. So for example, checking that the user has a license, that they paid for your game. Steam login. In Retro Tank Party, we're using Steam login to automatically create a user account on our server and log the user in so they don't have to type their username and password. Steam achievements. cloud save, and all the other stuff. Godot Steam is a Godot module. That means it needs to be compiled into Godot. It's not just a GD native library that you can drop into your project and use. But you don't need to be the one that compiles Godot. There are pre-compiled versions of the Godot editor and export templates available on the Godot Steam GitHub page. So if you want to use the Steam API, the Steam version of your game needs to be built with a different export template. You don't have to actually use the Steam API if you're making a Steam game. There's no requirement to do it, but I think most games do, at least to check that the user has a license, that they actually bought the game. So we are going to set up our GitLab CI configuration to build the game using the Godot Steam export templates. And a quick look at the end result. This is a screenshot of a pipeline for Retro Tank Party. You can see that it comes in 3 stages: an export, sign, and deploy stage. We're not going to be talking about the sign stage at all. That's going to be the topic of the next 2 parts in this series. So we're just going to have an export and deploy stage. You can see there's 3 jobs in the export stage: Linux Steam, macOS Steam, Windows Steam. These are distinct from the just plain Linux, macOS, and Windows versions because these builds are using the Godot Steam export templates like we just talked about. And then those artifacts will be taken by the Steam job in the deploy stage and using Steam command actually uploaded to Steam. So let's get started setting this up in our example project. All right, here we are on my Windows VM. The first thing that we are going to do is add some new export presets to our Godot project. But before we do that, we're going to download Godot Steam, which if you go to the GitHub page for Godot Steam and go to releases, you'll see a whole bunch of releases here. This first one says Godot Steam Server 1.2. We do not want Godot Steam Server. Scroll down, we want the one that is Godot Steam, and at the time of this video, 3.9.2 with Godot 3.3.2 and Steamworks 1.51 included. This is the version we want. If you expand assets, there are downloads for each of these platforms. Each of the downloads includes the Godot editor compiled with Godot Steam and the export templates. So this is Windows 64-bit, so we would download the Windows 64-bit zip, and you will also need to download for each of the platforms that you want to export to, or alternatively, you can download this export templates bundle, which includes all of them together. So I have already downloaded that. I can run my Godot 3.3.2 with Godot Steam right here. Open our usual example project. And you can tell that this is compiled with the Godot Steam module because if we go into help and search for the Steam singleton, you can see all of its documentation here with all of its methods. So many methods. All right. And the reason that you might want to use the editor with Godot Steam compiled in is that then you can implement your Steam integration in the editor and test it by clicking the normal run button and using the Godot debugger and all of that. Oh, one thing I should mention before we go on is that for this to actually run, you need to have gotten the DLL from the Steamworks SDK and put it in the same directory as the editor exe. So if you go into Steamworks SDK 151, this is something that you will be allowed to download after you create a Steamworks account and sign all the NDAs and stuff. And you go in here, into the SDK folder, and then there's this redistributable _ bin directory. This is what we're going to be referring to as the Steam redistributables through the rest of this video. And inside here, there'll be a Win64, and you can grab the Steam _API64.dll file and put that in the same directory as the Godot editor from Godot Steam. Otherwise, it won't start. There'll be an error. You will also need to put this DLL with your game when you redistribute it, and we will be setting up GitLab CI to do exactly that. So, all right, back to Godot. We need to go to Project, Export, and we need to add some new export presets for the Steam versions of the game. So we're going to start with Windows. So add Windows Desktop. We're going to rename this to Windows Desktop parentheses Steam. And the main thing we have to do here is set the export templates. So we're going to set both of them. All right, I put them in downloads. Godot Steam. Here we go. So I have the Windows-332-template-64-bit. That's the export template file. And we're going to set that for both the debug and release export templates, just so that you can't accidentally select debug instead of release and get the wrong export templates, just to save us from ourselves. And we are going to set the export path. Oh, it looks like I already made these directories. You will have to make these directories if you don't have them there already. And we're going to send it to this Windows Steam directory, gittest.exe, yes, overwrite. And we're going to export the project just to test that we set up the export preset correctly. And there it exported. All looks good. So we've done Windows. Let's move on to Linux. Again, we're going to name this same as the normal export template, but with parentheses Steam after it. And again, we're going to grab the export templates from Godot Steam. This time using the Linux 64-bit templates. And again, putting that in for both the debug and release version. And setting up the export path to go to our project /build/Linux Steam, because we're doing Linux now. And this already exists because I did a previous run through of this tutorial. And so it's already there. We'll do export project just to make sure that the export works. And it does. All right. So next, we need to make sure that some stuff in Steamworks is set up. So if we go over to my Steamworks account here, this is the dashboard page for Retro Tank Party. First, we need to make sure that we have a beta branch, because that is the branch we're going to be pushing to. So we go down to Edit Steamworks Settings, and then SteamPipe and Builds, I believe. Yes, so here are all of the branches. If you've just gotten your project set up on Steamworks, you will only have the default branch. You'll need to click Create New App Branch and add a beta branch. The next thing is we need to know your application ID, which is displayed all over the place in Steamworks. That's this number here for Retro Tank Party. And then the IDs for each of the depots that we are going to be uploading. To get that, you go to SteamPipe depots. All right, you'll need to configure each of the depots you want to use. For this tutorial, we're only worrying about Windows and Linux. I also have a Mac OS one here for Retro Tank Party. And you just need to make sure that they have the correct language, operating system, and architecture selected. And you need to write down these IDs because we'll need them later. And the last thing is you need to have set up a package with these depots in it. To do that, I believe we go back to the main dashboard page. And then we go to this first item, all associated packages, DLC, demos, and tools. Find store packages. And down here, you need to make sure that all of the depots that you want to be in this package are included. In this case, it would just be the Windows and Linux depots. All right, I think that's everything we need to do in Steamworks. So then we are going to go to the code for our project, which is in this git test1 folder. And we are going to create some new directories to hold our VDF files. So we'll make a new folder called scripts. And inside of scripts, a new folder called Steam. It might seem a little weird that we're putting these configuration files in a folder called scripts, but throughout the Valve documentation, they refer to the VDF files as scripts. So I kind of just took that and ran with it. So we are going to make a new file called app build separated by underscores, and then you will put your app ID here. You don't have to do this. You don't have to name the files like this, but this is a convention that's used through all of Valve's documentation, so I've chosen to adopt it here. We are going to just use a fake app ID of 1000. Yes, we do wish to change the file extension, but what you would really use here is the app ID that we saw in Steamworks, which coincidentally is not visible on this page, but we talked about it already. You should have written that down. And we are going to edit this with Notepad++. and we're going to get the content for this file from the cheat sheet document, which is linked in the description below. Let me get to that. Here we go, the Godot and GitLab CI cheat sheet. I'm going to scroll all the way down here into deploying to Steam. And this example app build 1000.pdf, we're going to copy the contents, oops, went a little too far, from here. Where's my notepad? There it is. And then you need to edit this to match your game. So you need to put your real app ID in here. You'll see this Steam description there. Don't change that. This is a bit of text that our GitLab CI configuration will actually look for and replace with the branch and commit hash like we saw earlier. The content root, this is the place from where we're going to be finding all of the files for all of our depots. Since we are in scripts Steam, we go back to directories and then to build. This build output directory, there's just a bunch of like generated files that are cached from running this process. And by putting them in a predictable place and reusing them, the Steam upload can actually go a little bit faster. So this directory will also be created and used by our GitLab CI configuration. You'll see that later. And then you need to put an entry for each of the depots. So you would put here the depot ID, the one that you wrote down earlier for, let's say, Windows, and then point it to another VDF file, which we're going to create in a moment, depot_build, and then the depot ID again. Since we're doing 2 depots for Windows and Linux, there will be 2 of those. So let's save this, and we'll create those depot files next. So we will do new text document, delete the whole thing, depot_build_, and we'll just pretend that the depot ID is 1001. Edit that with Notepad++, and then go back to the cheat sheet where we will copy this example depot build VDF. Oops. Paste that in here. You'll need to change the depot ID to the real depot ID for your project, and then comes the interesting stuff. So we are giving the path to the files that will actually be included in this depot. Since we set the content root over here to the build directory, these are all relative to the build directory. So Windows Steam, that's where we're having the export put all of the Windows Steam files. We do /* to say grab all the files. We've set recursive 1 here, so if you have any subdirectories within that directory, it would also grab those. And then the depot path to dot. And this is basically where your depot will be extracted to within your app. So if your app had like a directory structure, you could have a depot that just extracts into some subdirectory within there. By putting dot, we're saying just put it in the top level directory for your app. So this is for Windows Steam. We'll save this one, and we'll quickly make another for Linux Steam. Here we'll just try copying and pasting this time. Paste, and we'll change the name of this to the other depot ID, which we are pretending is 1002. Notepad++, we'll just change this to 1002, and the local path to Linux Steam. There, and save it. All right, so we now have all the VDF files that we need. Theoretically, at this point, you could actually run Steam command on your local machine with those exports that we already built, pointed at these VDF files, and it could upload your builds straight away. But we are not going to do that. We're going to set up GitLab CI to do that for us. So the next step is updating our GitLab CI YAML file. So let's get that opened in Notepad++, or .gitlab-ci.yml file, and it was Notepad++. And we're going to go down to the bottom, where we'll be copying and pasting some more stuff from the cheat sheet, which of course we'll talk through all of it. I would never have you copy and paste something without explaining exactly what all of it is doing. So it's actually quite a lot of stuff. Steam is complicated, if you haven't noticed already. So let's paste all of that, and we will start at the top. So the Windows Steam job, it's part of the export stage. We have the script here that actually does the work. We're going to be downloading the same files from Godot Steam from the release on GitHub that we did before, drop it into a zip file. We will extract that zip file to a special build templates directory, and then we are running this script, the first of 2 scripts that we will see, to update the export presets.cfg, a specific preset. We'll look in that file in a second, so you'll see what that means, and change the debug and release templates to be pointing at where we have put these templates on GitLab CI. Because if you go look in the export presets file, export_presets.cfg, edit with Notepad++, and we will go down to preset number 4, because that is our Windows desktop Steam. See preset number 4, and actually the preset number 4 options is what we're modifying with our script. It has the debug and release export templates pointing at a directory on my local machine, which when this is running GitLab CI, of course it won't be on your local machine. Those files will be in a different place. So the script is just updating those 2 lines. And you can get that script, let's jump back to the cheat sheet, by going to this link. And it is just a short Python script that we are going to copy into a file within the scripts directory. So we're going to make a new text document. I'm going to call it update-export-settings.py. Yes, change it. We're going to edit that with Notepad++, paste in these contents, and save. Now this is a really simple script. Basically, it's just going line by line through that export presets.cfg, looking for sections and properties, and then when it finds the one that you've asked it to update, it will replace it with the value that you've passed in. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Let's go back to our gitlab-ci.yml. So that updates the location of the export templates. We create the Windows Steam directory because it's not in Git, so it needs to be created on GitLab CI. And then we run the normal Godot export for the Windows Desktop Steam preset, exporting it to our build Windows Steam directory. And then we run another script, download Steam redistributables, to actually place this steam_API64.dll in our build directory. Now, we have a script doing this because we cannot, at least as far as I understand the license on the Steamworks SDK, we cannot put this like right in our Git repo. And it's probably a bad idea anyway, because putting big binary files in Git repo is generally not something you want to do. But my understanding of the license for these Steam redistributables is that you are allowed to redistribute them with your game when you're selling it to customers on Steam, but under no other circumstances. So let's take a look at this script really quick and see how it kind of works around that limitation. So we're going to go back to the cheat sheet, download Steam redistributables, and we'll start by just copying this into a file. It will also go in the scripts directory. Do a new text document, and this is download dash Steam dash redistributables.sh. That's a shell script. It's not a Python script this time. We'll edit it with Notepad++, paste in this content. All right. So the way that this works is it's looking for a Steam redistributables URL environment variable, which we'll be setting in the environment variables configuration on gitlab.com, pointing to a URL that contains a zip file that contains just the contents of this redistributable_bin directory. Now, we can't point directly to the place where Steam lets you download it because you have to have a Steamworks account in order to get that. So you will need to make your own zip file that contains this directory and put it at a URL somewhere that is technically public. It's accessible via an anonymous request to a URL, but should be not discoverable on the internet because, like I said, I do not believe that you are allowed to distribute these files except along with your game that you are selling on Steam. So you could take that zip file and put it in something like Google Drive or Dropbox and then make a share URL. For some of those services, it's possible to put like a get argument password on that URL so that if someone just visits the URL, it will say permission denied. They have to actually have this extra get argument on there to make it even harder for just random people to find where you've stashed these Steam redistributables. But that will be up to you. And then when we are later doing the environment variable configuration, you will put that URL that you've set up in this Steam redistributables URL variable. And the script is super, super simple. It's just downloading the file. It's extracting the zip, and then it is copying the requested file out of those extracted files to the destination that you have set up. Ooh, I missed something in my copy pasting. Be sure to copy and paste very precisely, unlike me right here. There we go. Worked. All right, that is the correct contents of this file. So if we go back to our gitlab-ci.yml file, that really finishes it off. We've exported stuff from Godot. We've added the Steam redistributable, and now we're setting up GitLab CI to put everything in this directory into an artifact, which will later be grabbed by the Steam job to actually upload that to Steam. And we are telling this to only run on master and develop. I feel like I skipped something when we were going through the app build because yeah, so this set live beta, this is the Steam branch that you want to set this build live on. And like I mentioned before, you cannot use the default branch here. That is not allowed. It has to be one of the other branches. So here we're using beta. All right. So going back to here, yeah, so the desired result is push a commit to either of these branches. It pushes to, well, at this stage in this job, it's just creating the build, but then that build will eventually be pushed to the beta branch. So we come down to the Linux Steam build. It is basically exactly the same as the Windows one, but switching all of the Windows stuff for Linux stuff. So you can see we're grabbing the Linux release from Godot Steam. We're updating preset number 5 rather than preset number 4, because if you look in our export presets, preset number 5 is Linux/X11 Steam. If you have your presets ordered a little bit differently, of course, you'll need to update this for your game. And exporting the Linux Steam preset with Godot and downloading the Linux 64/libsteam_api.so Steam redistributable into the build directory. And again, making an artifact out of the contents of that build directory and only doing it on master and develop. So now we get down to the real Steam specific stuff. We have a Steam build. It's part of the deploy stage, just like our itch.io upload is part of the deploy stage, and it's using a different image. So for most of these jobs, we are using this Baricello/Godot-CI 3.3.2 image, which has Godot and the normal export templates included. And here we are switching to this CM2 network/Steam command image, which is an image with Steam command in it. We set some dependencies. This has to run after the Windows-Steam and Windows-Linux jobs. And then we get down to the script. So the first part of the script is just messing around with cache. So you can see down here we set some cache paths. We're caching the contents of the Steam_cache directory and the Steam build output directory. The build output directory is what we looked at here. We're putting these sort of like just random build artifacts into that directory, which if they are cached, will allow subsequent builds to run faster. And then the Steam cache directory is something we are managing ourselves. First of all, we're basically making sure that Steam cache directory exists, and if not creating it, then we are copying cache.vdf from that directory into the Steam config directory. So we're copying this cache config directory from cache to there, and we're copying the Sentry file also into Steam. And then you can see at the end, we're doing the reverse of that. We're copying from the Steam cache, the Steam config VDF and the Steam Sentry file into the Steam cache directory to store if those files were created or changed in this process, so that we can keep them cached. The Sentry file is what is used by Steam to like keep your login. So after you've logged in, that's basically like the remember me checkbox, those Sentry files. Because login is a little bit weird with Steam, as we will see when we actually try running this. You want to only kind of go through this nitty-gritty thing with setting the Steam Guard code the first time, and then from then on you want all subsequent builds to just work, to just be logged in. So next, after we're messing with the caches, we are replacing the Steam description string that we saw earlier with the commit ref name, that's the branch name, and the commit short SHA, that's the commit hash. In our app build 1000.vdf, just to refresh your memory, that's this Steam description here, which will then appear in Steamworks. And then the real work here is done by Steam command. So we are running Steam command. We are setting the Steam Guard code to an environment variable, which we'll be setting up in gitlab.com. I'll show that to you in a little bit. We are using this username from, again, another environment variable that we'll be setting at gitlab.com, along with this build password. We are pointing at our VDF file, our main app one. We're doing the run app build command using this build app build 1000 VDF. And once that is all done, we're telling Steam command to quit. And like we already talked about, copying that stuff back to the cache, doing the cache, and only doing this on these branches. So that is everything that we need to do with files, or actually almost everything. There is one more thing. Let's get Windows. I don't use Windows very often, so I'm always poking around in here a little blind. Okay, so we're going to right-click on our folder and go to git bash here to get the git command line. If we do git status, you will see that we modified one file, the export presets, and we added the scripts directory. So let's just make sure we are going to... Actually, before we do that, just so we don't have to do things twice, we're going to go into the scripts directory really quick, cd scripts, and these two script files, are they already executable? Oh, that is fantastic. So what I was going to have us do here is set the executable bit on these scripts, because otherwise, when these scripts were going to be run on GitLab CI, which is under Linux, it would refuse to run them because the executable bit isn't set, but it is, for whatever reason here. I don't know if that's a result of Notepad++ or what, but if you needed to set it manually, you do chmod space +x, and then the name of the script. And that is how you set the executable bit. And you would need to do that for both files. So if you did not see this X at the end, we don't care about the Steam directory, but the X at the end on these two script files, then you would need to run that command. All right, so we'll go back to the top level directory, git status, we'll do git add the export presets config file and scripts. And then we'll do git status again. You can see all of the files that are being modified and added. And here is where we would, commit it and say, setup GitLab, or setup, or we'll say Steam deployment with GitLab CI, something like that. And there it is committed. You can see it in our git log. But I'm not actually going to push this because I'm not actually going to set up our test project on Steam with Steamworks. I don't want to pay the $100 fee, and I don't know that Valve would really like me putting up a fake game for the purposes of a tutorial. So we're just not going to do that. Instead, we are going to run the builds using RetroTank Party. So let me go over to RetroTank Party on gitlab.com. Like I said, this is all open source, so you can come look in here if you like. We are going to first look in settings CI/CD to see the environment variables. So there are a lot of environment variables for RetroTank Party. Quite a few of them do not apply at all to this tutorial. You can see some from older tutorials like the Butler API key for doing itch.io upload. The Steam ones that are important are this Steam build password, Steam build user, Steam guard code, and Steam redistributables URL. So for your project, you will need to do all of them except Steam guard code initially. And you want to set your Steam build username to your special Steam account that you created just to upload builds on Steam, minus Snowpeck Games build. You will want to put also your password for that account under Steam build password. I will not be clicking the little pencil on that one. And the Steam redistributables URL to that URL that you put the zip file with the Steam redistributables. So to simulate the first run experience, here's what we are going to do. And click Clear Runner Caches. That will get rid of all of the cache data. Let's go find the last pipeline that I did that uploaded to Steam, which I guess is this alpha one. So I have an extra Steam branch. Not normal alpha, Steam alpha. I have an extra Steam branch called alpha, which my Steam alpha Git branch uploads to. So we are going to rerun the Steam job for this build. So let's go watch what happens. And you can see it's downloading the artifacts from the previous jobs, the Linux Steam artifacts, the macOS X Steam side artifacts, and the Windows Steam side artifacts. In your case, you'll just have Linux Steam and Windows Steam. Here it's doing the cache manipulation stuff we talked about before and saying it's not finding a cache config file or cache sentry file. Then it's doing the Steam command, where the first thing it does is, of course, downloads an update to Steam. If you've ever used Steam before, you know it almost always has to download an update. And then it gets down to the bottom where it's trying to log in this user, and it fails. It says, this computer has not been authorized for your account using SteamGuard. Please check your email for a message from Steam and enter the SteamGuard code from that message. You can also enter this code at any time, blah, blah, blah. So then you need to go to your email. I'm not going to open my email up on the video, but if I switch over to my email in another window, I get this, your Steam account, access from new computer email. Dear Snowpeck Games build, here's your SteamGuard code you need to log into accounts Snowpeck Games build, and it gives me this 5-character code, which I'm going to copy and paste, and then go into settings, CI/CD, variables, and then I will add a variable, which would SteamGuard, was it code? I deleted the variable earlier to make that build run correctly, so it's not in here for me to just edit. Let me just quick check. SteamGuard code. Yep. Take two. Steam. SteamGuard code. And then I will paste that value in. And will it let me mask it? Nope, cannot be masked. Okay. So I'll add that variable. Now we have the SteamGuard code variable here again. And if we go back and retry this build, it should actually work this time. All right, we're getting down to where it's just on the Steam update. And now it is logging in user, and it's masked the value. And it says logged in, okay. So our SteamGuard code worked. Now it's starting the app ID build and building the first depot. This can take a while. It's done the first depot, now it's on to the second. I think the first depot is Windows. Second one is Linux. And it has finished Linux. It prepared the update, scanned the update, uploaded the content, now just onto macOS. All right, you can see that it successfully finished this app ID build. It is copying our data to the cache, including the sentry file, so we won't need to do that, dance with the SteamGuard code again. Saving the cache so that it will be used in later jobs. And it's done. It's done. We can go look in Steamworks. Go back to edit Steamworks settings, SteamPipe builds. And you can see that we just did a new build on the alpha branch. And they're using a different time zone than me. I guess that would be Pacific time. Because, yeah, 8:54 a.m. to 6:53. And that's about it. Please let me know if I missed anything, if there's anything unclear, or if there's anything in particular you want to see in future episodes. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the next 2 episodes are going to be about macOS signing and notarization and Windows signing, respectively. That's all I got. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.